So I want to welcome you to Market Like It Is 2019. I encourage you to share this session on social media. Use the hashtag KZooSMWeek. So your posts are featured on the live feed. Please silence your phone or put it on Do Not Disturb so there are no disruptions for the speaker or the session. I want to introduce Eric Holgren. Eric is a driven market leader focusing on how human beings can connect pragmatically using technologies available right now. In addition to being the director of social media and content marketing for the Inline Media Group and Advanced Midwest, he is an adjunct professor of mass media, CEO of a charity that helps at-risk kids experience the performing arts called Now Playing, and nationally recognized podcast host. For Eric, everything is marketing. It's not just a catchphrase, but a lens which he views the world around him. In this session, we will learn every piece of content is used multiple times. Your content needs to be native to the channel it is on, and how to create a content plan that works for you and is not a cookie cutter like the best time to post is. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you. So I'm in this unenviable position where I've been placed after lunch, before drinks, and introduced by a woman with a dog. Right? But what we're going to do today, guys, is we're going to talk about shunning the shiny thing. The idea that we're not just going to run as marketers to the next social platform that shows up because somebody told us to. If you're a funeral home, Snapchat is probably the wrong place to be, right? We're going to talk about stuff like that. So, as Melody said, my name is Eric Hulkren. I come from Chicago, where in Kalamazoo only half of you hate the teams that I like, because you're mostly from Chicago. I graduated from Hope College, and then I immediately went to go work at WSNX. And I was there from 1999 to 2014, where I didn't age for a long time, like Captain America, and then I aged terribly. I met a whole bunch of interesting people, but midway through, I decided I wanted to go back and get my master's. And so I went to Grand Valley. And while I was there, when you get your master's, you have to do some sort of giant project to prove that you deserve that master's. And so for my capstone, what I did is a study on contemporary hits radio, or what I was doing at SNX in the social media era. And the idea was, I felt that people who were consuming top 40 radio were consuming them for a specific reason, a feeling, call it a soundtrack. The average time that people listen to a top 40 radio station in West Michigan, so Kalamazoo on up to Traverse City, is about 16 minutes. So if you only have 16 minutes to get people's attention, playing 3 songs seemed silly. So the idea was, what if we took those songs and we bumped them all the way down to 90 seconds? And we have been running what are called mix shows, so these would be hour-long programs where 90 seconds after 90 seconds after 90 seconds, or trying to emulate the club with less drinks on the radio, right? So the idea is here, if you enjoyed a single Snickers bar, in the entire time that it took you to consume that, if I could give you this many Snickers bars, would you be happier? And so what we did, and I want to show you here using Taylor Swift's latest song, is we took these people's pieces of art, and I know this is a little bit heretical, right? But we took their songs and we would cut them down. So with Taylor Swift's new song, Me, it would sound a little bit something like this. And so I would take a bit of the beat and put it on the front so I could introduce the song. I would let her lead into the chorus, because that's mostly what people are listening for. And because this is a duet, we need to have a little bit of Brandon from Panic at the Disco in it, so we would put that in there too, and then we'll mix out, and you'll hear that here in a second. And obviously we wouldn't be playing the video, but I figured it'd be boring to watch a black screen, so I put the video in there. I know you never get just what you see, but I will never pour you, baby. I think we have the right out there. So one more chorus, and then we're out. So we do a verse, 2 choruses, a bridge, and then we were done. Now they would start singing here, but we cut that out and replaced it with the beat of the song. And what we found, guys, is we were able to increase the streaming numbers because there was no real measurable way to see what we did with the radio station back at that point. We were able to raise the streaming numbers significantly over a 4-month period. And so for 4 months, we did this every Saturday and every Sunday. And so if you were going to boil my entire career down to 2 words, it would be, what if? And so when I was writing for today, I thought, what if I did a magic trick for you guys? I bought some cards, I went on the internet, I did it 3 times. This will work perfectly, right? The problem is, guys, I'd be really bad at magic. But what I'm really good at are games. So I want to start this afternoon by playing a game, and I need 2 volunteers. You? 1 more. Anyone, I promise I won't bite. Go ahead, come on up here. Give them a round of applause. I'm not going to punch you or knock you out or anything like that. Well, what I'm going to have you guys do, I'm going to have you stand right here. I'm going to shuffle these a little bit. I want you to stand back to back. Like you're in Charlie's Angels, exactly. All right, so I'm going to let you, Catherine, pick a card. Don't show it to anybody. Pick anyone you want. Okay? And Justin, I'll let you pick one too.
This one right?
Whatever one you want.
Okay.
Okay. Now, we're a little tight on space here. So what I want you guys to do is take a single step away from one another and turn and show your cards to everyone, like to each other, like you're gunslingers, right? So you're going to play war with your cards. So take 1 step, turn and show them your card.
So who?
Her. We've got a 2 and a queen. So Catherine is the winner. Give it up for Catherine. So what I've given you is a book that I super enjoy, and then because it's a social media conference, there's coffee on the inside. Now, if you guys want to return to your seats for a second, thank you.
That was easy. What's that?
Yes. So we just played a game where it was high card wins, and Catherine won. Don't go too far, Catherine, wait. But what if I changed the rules after the game had started, and I decided that low card wins? How does that feel?
Sad.
Right, sad. Good news is, I got you covered. The bad news is, guys, this is how a lot of brands feel every time they try and use Facebook. They wake up every single day, and the rules have changed in the middle of their campaign. There you go. Thank you. Give it up for those 2 guys. And so, we're going to get to work today and talk a little bit how you can minimize some of that frustration. Minimize the chance that the traffic that Catherine had went to Justin without any explanation as to why. And we're going to do that by understanding that every 60 seconds, this is what happens on the internet.
Yeah.
I do not know who these people are with the 1.4 million swipes on Tinder, but they are living their best life. And when we take this all at one piece, it can be a little bit overwhelming. So let's break it down a little bit, especially with social, to 2 types of channels. We'll call them active and passive. Your active channels are Pinterest and YouTube and LinkedIn. These are channels that people have to actually search for content on them. They're not idly swiping through, they're looking for something. If you're on YouTube, you're looking for something, and then 7 hours later you remember you had to go someplace, right? Passive channels are the ones that you're just idly going through and get served content to you. And understanding the difference will help you understand what type of content to make in these particular places. And we know that people are spending more time in social, even 55 to 64. One of the things that I will talk about over the next nearly 2 hours that we get to spend with one another, right, is this idea that we don't want to discount anybody in the ecosystem if they make sense. We don't want to just say old people are on Facebook, so therefore we're not going to go to Facebook if that doesn't make sense. Everybody is using social, and as you will see, these platforms tend to age up and then people find a different platform, right? It was Facebook, it was Instagram, and then everybody 18 and under went to Snapchat, right? And that's going to continue to happen. And while they're on these platforms, they're looking for a couple things. They have questions, they have issues with your product or service, they want to praise your product or service. We love these people, right? They want to comment, perhaps, and they leave you for also various reasons. Too many promotional messages, you tweet too much, or your information is not relevant, or these two, nearly 30%. You're too quiet, you don't say anything, or you don't respond to me. And when we're talking about the platforms, it is no surprise to anybody in this room that Facebook is the largest one. So that's where we're going to start. They recently changed their logo to be a Mario coin that's blue, right? And they changed the blue from apparently this scary corporate blue to this more warm, snuggly blue. But they also changed the app, guys. And this is what it looks like. If you haven't had an update yet, it will probably be in the next week or so. The mobile looks like this if you take this part out and this part out. The important thing to understand is this. These are your stories. And so Facebook is making a push to try and push people together into groups, into events, and into stories. And they're offering many ways that you can connect with your customer. In the feed, the audience network, stories that we talked about, and watch. And this is vital because we are consuming more content in the Facebook app than we are on television. And that's not to say that we should sit here and say, don't ever do television. It's to say we need to understand all of these platforms and where they fit in our campaign. And to understand that 93% of Facebook's revenue came from mobile ads that were served. And that's up 91% since last year. So when you hear things like Facebook is moving people into groups and events and you're thinking, well, how am I going to advertise to them? Trust me, you'll be able to advertise to them because they need to keep the doors and the lights on, right? The doors should probably stay on. The lights is what they need to keep on. We know that 91% of people follow a brand on Facebook. We know that video is the way to go. If you're not doing video, this is the time that you need to start doing video. And that's also to say that you shouldn't just do video, but video should be part of what you do because 49% faster revenue growth if you have video in your campaign and 1,200% more shares over text and photos combined. And if we're making video for Facebook, they're not listening. So you need to use closed caption. Go ahead, you're fine. We're all friends here. It's all good. I wasn't saying anything interesting anyway. I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Just walk right down the middle, no problem.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Instagram. You saw some of it this morning. It's the darling child of the social world, the very visual version of the internet, 1 billion active users, and breaks into 3 categories: Instagram stories, the news feed, and Instagram TV. And what's interesting about Instagram TV is if you try and find any data on Instagram TV, there isn't any. Likely because most people aren't watching it. And so if we're creating campaigns, this is not a thing that I'm going to focus on. This will highly qualify as one of the shiny things. As Quinn talked about this morning, we're spending nearly an hour on the platform. Most of the platform is under the age of 35. And 71% of US businesses are using Instagram. The other 29% are out of business. I'm kidding, I'm totally kidding. But this is a place where you're seeing a lot of growth for advertisers who understand that it's not about selling the widget. It's about building a community and figuring out where to sell the widget later. And if you've got an Instagram account, what you talk a lot about is a vanity metric. How many followers do you have? How many followers do you have? Are you an influencer? Are you a micro-influencer? Are you a nano-influencer? Here's the thing. Nearly 80% of the platform is less than 10,000 followers. So if you're less than 10,000 followers, congrats, you're most of the platform. You're most of what we want to find as marketers. You're most of who we want to talk to. And people want to use the platform more. They're using it more than they did a year ago, and of those people, they're going to use it more next year. And 40% of the platform does not watch TV on a regular basis. Let's talk about LinkedIn. 500 million users. If you're looking for decision makers, there are 40 million of them on the platform. And you can generate leads. 60% of marketers say LinkedIn is the place that they generate their leads. But I love this graph because as all good marketers, we actually have no idea what's going on. 33% of us are like, I don't know where it came from, but it's awesome, right? Desktop usage is above smartphone usage, but I want to pause here and understand that if you're making content for LinkedIn and you're making it for them to consume on, I don't know, Friday night, Saturday, or Sunday, they are not on their desktop. We need to treat it like they're Facebook or Instagram. We're creating mobile content on the weekends on LinkedIn. And this is one of the two most fascinating slides when we're talking about high-level understanding of what's happening on the platform. 64% of people that are on LinkedIn that follow your brand page will never leave you. This is for a couple reasons, guys. One, because a lot of people don't go on LinkedIn every single day. It's once a week, it's twice a month, right? If you have spent a lot of time going through your email, you know why you don't check it very often, right? And the other thing is, members are 2 times more likely to trust the information on LinkedIn. Quinn talked a little bit this morning about the dumpster fire that is Facebook. We'll talk a little bit more about it here. But that is a problem when you're trying to create trust in this ecosystem. And LinkedIn might be a great place to do that. Now, let's talk about Twitter, the fastest of the platforms. It's part of a lot of marketers' media mix, and yet most of those marketers tweet once a day. Which anyone who's on Twitter knows that that will never work. Video works better than GIFs or GIFs. We're not going to fight about that. But here's the thing about Twitter, is I had the pleasure of listening to Jasmine, who runs all the social for Airbnb. And they asked her, like, how does your Twitter work, right? Because the thing about Twitter is people treat it like a phone. If I want to pick it up at 1:30 in the morning, I expect an answer. And in order to be successful, in her own words, you need an army to do that properly. They might look like this army, right? But you need them to do that. Here's where that rule breaks. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, we're at a conference that has a hashtag. And if you're somebody who's trying to find mentors in your life, get a new job, get a job at all, this is a place where that works on Twitter using the hashtag. And so I was in Vegas in March. I got invited to the Adobe Summit with a lot of people I had no business having access to. And so I took it as a chance for me to make some noise. And so I went on Twitter every day for 90 minutes and followed the hashtag. And every person that was saying something interesting, I was conversing with them. You just gasped. I had nothing else to do. I was by myself in Vegas. But like, I had nothing else to do because I was there for the conference. I was there to do interviews. I was there to work. So I spent 90 minutes. And you can see, with no paid spend, my impressions go up 384%, and my engagement goes up 364%. And then I become boring, right? But this is how this works. When you go to these conferences, you can get this huge lift for talking with people. I've met 5 people this afternoon by just being on Twitter since 8 this morning, using the hashtag, trying to meet people and have conversations and see where that stuff goes. It works miraculously there. And if you avoid Twitter at all and you never go on it, you will miss stuff like this that happened last night. We live in a country where we shoot at the weather, people. We shoot at the weather. And we have a law that says we can't shoot at the weather. This is Twitter in a nutshell. Okay, so we know where we want to go as marketers, and now we have to get there. I'm just about done with my intro, okay? And as we get to October, we'll be celebrating the 25th anniversary of the first digital ad. Prepare for the design creation that is the first digital ad. It's amazing we got here, friends. I'm just saying, it's amazing we got here. But in order to understand where we should be going, we have to consider all of these things. When you show up at a lot of social conferences specifically, there's a lot of people who dump on the other legacy mediums, like television, like billboards, like radio. But the thing is, you can learn something from the old people, right? They have something to teach you. The medium has something to teach you. So 3 years ago, we were approached by an auto dealer, and that auto dealer was an Acura dealer. And the Acura NSX was back on the market. It had gone away in 1999, and this particular dealer had a CRM database that they took people who put a down payment in case the car ever came back. I know nobody who lives like this, but they exist. And they had a list of 40 people, and by the time they got to us, there was 8 on the list. And they came to us as a digital agency, and they're like, what should we do? What email should we put out? what image should we put on Instagram? What should we do on Facebook? And we were like, these guys own Major League Baseball teams, hockey teams, and whole cities. We're doing none of those things. We have to disrupt their thinking. We have to use what we know in the digital space and move it to the physical space. So what we did is we built a box that looks like this box. And when they opened the box, there were 3 things in it. And this isn't a reference to 7 at all, right? There were 3 things in it. One was a Kindle Fire. And on that Kindle Fire, we'd hacked it so when you powered it up, all it did was play these YouTube videos of the Acura NSX beating 3 other sports cars, a Bugatti, a Ferrari, and I always forget the other one. But it was beating 3 sports cars, and it auto-fired as soon as you turned on the Kindle. And then we also sent them a bottle of wine. So they had a Kindle and a bottle of wine, which seems like a perfect Saturday evening. And they also had a keychain. There was an Acura NSX keychain. And we had the dealer handwrite them a note that said, I have 3 of these left. Want one? And as improbable as it sounds, that may remind you of, I don't know, an episode of Game of Thrones 2 weeks ago, we were able to sell all 3 cars in a matter of 8 days. So that's $700,000 worth of car in 8 days, with about a $1,500 investment in physical goods. And so, as we talk, and I'll take your questions when we're done here in a little bit, I want you to understand that I like to look at this platform as a canvas that I can bring everything that I've ever learned in and out. And so I can meet people where they are. Our clients can meet people where they are and use the tactics and tools that we have at our disposal when it's appropriate. Okay, so what can you do on this platform? January of this year, a company called BuzzSumo studied nearly 800 million Facebook pages to ferret out some best practices. This is the best part of the social thing, right? Like, what's the silver bullet? What's the time I need to put the Instagram post up for me to win? I'm going to show you this stuff, but I want to say that there's a couple places in the study when you read it that will show you that the outliers were as successful as the best practices. So this is a place where we need to test as marketers and find out what works for our brands when. Number 1 format is video. But down here, coupons and links, which means if you are a brand that's continually sharing links, you're getting less and less bang for your buck on the Facebook page as it's a pay-to-play space, and we talked about earlier today, they want you to stay on the platform. This isn't to say, though, that all we want to do is video, because that won't necessarily work either. Instead, we want to mix it up, and we want to share links, and we want to be at events. We want to make videos and podcasts and images so that when people come to our brand page, it feels like a robust universe. Best time. This is a little bit no duh, right? When people are home and they're starting to wind down their day, they tend to do a lot more things like Instagram and Facebook. However, Facebook is not in real time, right? It's asynchronous. So you might find that if you post your content at 4 in the morning, it gives it enough of a ramp so that when people are looking for it at 7, it starts to take off. This is a place that I would play and test a lot. And we've been doing a lot of it with some of our brands that we run internally. Optimal number of characters. Please stop doing this. Please stop. Nobody clicks on see more, especially if you do it all the time. If you're the person that wants to write an entire novel on your brand page and expect people to read it, they don't do that. There are times that we can break this rule, but as a rule, if there's 800 million brand pages that say less than 50 characters, let's find another way to tell the story. In a blog post, in a video. Come on in.
Is Miss Macklin here?
I don't, come on in, you can ask. I don't,
You don't know what she looks like?
I don't.
I don't see. Oh, she's here looking. Okay, thanks.
You got it. And always be helpful. Okay, next thing. And this one was for me the best part of the whole study because this has nothing to do with Facebook. This has to do with human nature. When people get up Monday through Friday, they drive down the same road and go to the same coffee shop. They get up at the same time. They use the same soap. They go to the same restaurants. They eat the same thing for lunch, talk to the same people at work, and then watch the same stuff at night over and over and over again. They change their habits Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. So if, as marketers, we want to try some new stuff, the weekend is the place that you should try that, or a holiday, or in an ideal situation, a weekend that is a holiday, right? Optimal video length. A year ago, there would be people standing up on stage telling you that you should be over here. Less than a minute. People have no time, they don't watch anything. But 800 million Facebook pages shows that about 3 minutes and 33 seconds is the sweet spot. All of this stuff is up for testing and debating, because you might find that you got content up that's 30 seconds that wins for you. But understanding that there's an appetite for longer content that might connect to your audience is a powerful thing to understand. And the next thing to understand is that we have to get way more creative with our ad campaigns. We meet a lot of clients who will come to us and will say, Facebook doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. And then you'll say, hey, can I see what are you running right now? And they'll be running a single image with $1,000 to a crazy audience that's been served it 77 times, right? That's not gonna work. So we've got a client that we've been working with for about 3 years called Michigan Progressive Health. They recently changed their name to Thrive. And what they are is a place that does ketamine treatments for severe depression. And if you don't know what any of that is, you're in a great place. But what it is sort of when you've reached the end of treatment and you're looking for something else to do. And what you have to do to even get in a place like this is fail off of 3 drugs that treat depression and have $3,500 in cash because insurance won't cover this. So in marketer speak, that's the smallest number of humans that exist on Earth, right? And so when they came to us, we were like, okay, the way that we can start to find these people is not only using some of the data and CRM that you guys have, but we're also gonna mess around with creative. So every month, we were making 25 to 30 different pieces of creative. Different sizes, different colors, different humans, different words, to test and test and test. And make sure that as we found people and these ads were working, they got to go to the next round, and the ones that didn't perform, we obviously ferreted them out and brought new ones in. And the results were staggering. Nearly 1 million impressions and nearly 6,000 clicks to their website. We ignore these guys because they were doing nothing before they met us, so 3,600% increase from 0 is not really an increase, right? But the show is that when we're building these campaigns, we need to have way more creative than we think we should, because that's what the algorithm likes to chew up, and it wants to test, and it wants to do A/B testing, and it wants to see what your audience likes on all of the platforms, on Instagram, on Stories, on Messenger, on the Audience Network, and the Facebook feed. And speaking of Instagram, we heard about it this morning, and I want to dig into a couple other things that piggyback off what Quinn was talking. One, from an engagement mechanism, it's 8 to 1 over Twitter. So if you compare the most interactions on Instagram, which is 9gag, and the most interactions on Twitter, which is President Trump, it's an 8 to 1. So if you want to get interactions, the place to start is Instagram. And it's a place to make money in unique ways. So National Geographic tops 100 million Instagram followers and made 80% more revenue in 2018 than they did 17. Let me say that one more time. National Geographic, pictures of owls, made 80% more revenue in 2018 than it did in 17. And what's interesting about National Geographic is they run essentially a website where photographers all over the planet submit their images every single hour to get on their Instagram account. And in this particular case, they were looking for professional photographers who were using Samsung products so that they could tag Samsung and charge Samsung for the paid partnership. Right? And so that's what they do every single hour, is a professional photographer will give them a piece of content, and if they're running some sort of campaign with Samsung or Apple or Canon or whatever, they can tag them in that and create a paid partnership that isn't an ad. It's a beautiful owl or a manatee or rats, right? But this is what they're doing. And the other thing that they're doing is they're making sure that when you look at the grid, it tells you a story. The thing that I think a lot of people love, myself included, about Instagram is the many ways that you can tell a better story. The grid tells a story. The highlights tell a story. Your stories tell a story. And so in January of this year, I decided to start doing experimentation on myself. Because prior to that, I was doing exactly what Quinn said this morning. I was posting photos of food and books and keynotes and dogs and pretty flowers and whatever I bumped into. And I thought to myself, who on earth would want to see that? And the answer is no one would want to see that. And so I made it an effort to take a new photo every single day outside and make sure that my grid was resembling the way in which nature was looking at that moment, because we live in a beautiful state where beautiful things happen. So this is what it looked like in January into February, right? So it looks like winter. And again, no spend, but me taking that extra step to go, I'm gonna do something completely different on this platform than I'm doing any other platform, paid off. With likes received, comments, and media sent, right? The other thing about Instagram is it's a wonderful canvas to play on, because you can play in two different directions. You can use panoramic, right? So we take a long form and then we break it up and put it on Instagram so people can scroll through it. It tells a story. Or we can do stories, which we'll do in a second. And F8 was a week ago. And on the keynote about Instagram, there was something that I found to be very profound that they mentioned. And that was that in Canada right now, they're testing removing likes. The heart stays, you can see it here, the heart stays, but the number disappears. And so I ask you, fellow marketers, what would your campaign on Instagram look like if no one knew how popular it was? My answer would be, I better have really good content. Because I'm not going to get viral for viral's sake, right? We're not going to watch Gangnam Style because somebody told us to, right? We have to make sure that this is something that people want to connect with. And what happened immediately after this news came out is influencers panicked because this is their currency.
Yeah.
And so Quinn alluded to it this morning. They launched a new platform called the Creator Platform. And what that is going to do, and you can sort of see what it might do in this image, but it looks better here, is that's going to allow these creators to tag products in their own images. So this isn't a watch company tagging it, that's a human being tagging the watch. And the watch in this case is an Instagram partner, and so they're buying the watch off of Instagram. They've never left. Because Instagram wants to be a shopping destination as well. So when we talk about how is Facebook going to make revenue, this is the stuff that they're thinking about, is how we can get creators to monetize everything in their image so that you like the image because you're connected to that person, you have some sort of emotional connection to them, or you liked the product in their images, and then they can make revenue on the back end here, and people never leave the platform, which is key to Facebook's world domination, is that you never leave. The other key is vertical storytelling. And for me and many other people, this is a place where we struggle, even though 94% of people carry their phone like that and 6% haven't figured it out yet, right? But as people in media or making media or consuming media, we have told stories like this for hundreds of years. And so when we take the aspect ratio and we go the other way, it can be very difficult. But there's 500 million people using Instagram stories. And the predecessor to your smartphone was telling vertical stories in the 70s. And so we pay attention to big brands that are telling vertical stories and messing around with, text over images or any sort of design elements that they can take advantage of using the scale. We can spread images out and tell a story out into the distance or tell a story up into infinity. Now normally on Instagram this would look like this, which would be a cute story about a mom reading or looking at a device with her son. But when we extend it, it tells a story of where it is and when it is. Or we can use it like this, using video. So on your far right is a cupcake. We're making sushi out of yarn in the middle, and my favorite one, he's climbing up 3 different elements to knock over a lamp. All of this happens because we understand the canvas in stories and how to tell a vertical story versus a horizontal story. Because as I showed you at the beginning, it's a big part of what we're going to be doing. This is front and center. And from a design perspective, the add a post thing is much, much, much smaller. And consumers are going to see the giant candy-like buttons and want to click on them as long as they're interesting. Let's get back to LinkedIn. LinkedIn also has an interesting month. They have added reactions if you haven't seen them. They have like, they have celebrate, they have love because we're contractually obligated, they have insightful, and then they have curious. And what I love about this edition is, number one, they needed to have something other than a like because it didn't make a lot of sense. And 2, it's almost holistically positive. The only thing that's kind of negative is curious. And so they're creating a movement here where people are supposed to be talking about professional things in a professional manner. So if LinkedIn ends up being the social platform that teaches us all manners, I think that's a good place to start having a conversation. The other thing, when we talk about content, is how do I know what to make? Well, LinkedIn has an answer to that too. They have this thing called content suggestions. And so what happens is it brings up all the content that either your users are reading, the people that work for your company are reading, or people who you pick that are, and Live only has 300 employees on this, so you won't see any, but people that work in your industry. So in this case, I will show you marketing and advertising, and people were reading about the Fire Festival when I pulled this. But what you could do is, if you don't have a team that can put together content, you can just take this, start building a story on LinkedIn. But the pro tip would be, if I knew that they were talking about the Fire Festival, maybe I want to pull out my phone and give a 2-minute synopsis of what we think about the marketing of the Fire Festival, what we think about influencer marketing, and put that on LinkedIn because you're already reading about it. They're also rolling out LinkedIn Live. And this one terrifies me a bit because, like I said, my InMail is sort of a dumpster fire. I don't know about yours. And so all of the people that are on InMail are now going to take to this and start telling you about their SaaS products that they want to sell you. And that scares me a little bit. But as marketers, we can tell stories. We can live stream this entire event to other professionals and see what comes of it, and then build audiences around that and target them. And I'll show you that in a minute. And this becomes important because last week, when Zuckerberg stands up and says the future is private, remember, 93% of the revenue comes from mobile ad revenue. So if we're talking about what he said, moving the town hall to the living room, we have to figure out how to get into the living room, to be the paper, or the car, or the pen, or the clothing, or the plant, the pillow, the couch, be part of this story. Which brings us to Thanos. Now, Avengers is the biggest movie on the planet, just passed 2 billion this past weekend. Did it in 11 days, Avatar did it in 17, so this will be an interesting year because there are people who are also thinking that the next Star Wars film will be a part of this conversation. But arguably the largest film ever at this point. And interesting and different from Avatar, because there's only one Avatar. There were 22 films that totaled 59 hours and 7 minutes of content. This is universe building at a high level, right? This is also a chance as marketers for us to steal some ideas from how Marvel does this. And the first thing they do, which we've heard a couple times today, is you gotta have a plan, guys. We cannot get up on Monday and go, oh shit, I gotta do something. That's not how this works. We have to build a plan. And a plan can look however you want it to look. Whatever platform you want to look. If you want it to look like this, so you know what days and what posts you're putting up, if you want it to look like this because you're more visual, I don't care as long as you have a plan. And as part of that plan, if you're a small team, we have to understand how to leverage the content that we're making. And we like to call that the rule of 3. Create evergreen content, break it into micro content, and move it across social channels as applicable. What does that look like? Well, 2 years ago, there's a game that people were talking about. And I started driving around the state of Michigan delivering this keynote, talking about what Fortnite can teach you about customer service. And the idea was this, that Epic Games, who owns Fortnite, gives away the game for free. And last year made $4 billion. Because they've created a community that buys other things around the game. And it was well received, but I was also doing an experiment within the experiment, and that was, I wanted to test this theory. So what I did is I would Facebook Live the keynote. When I was doing the dumpster fire of Instagram, the notes of my keynote would go up there. We would move the whole thing to YouTube so people could watch it there. I would make a 1-minute teaser of what I was talking about for Facebook right before I went on stage. I turned the whole thing into a podcast, transcribed the podcast into a blog post on LinkedIn, and because I'm a man-child, I had to play the game, so I did that on Twitch and took a sample of that and put it on Twitter. So we've got 8 pieces of content off of 1 piece of content. So we need to figure out what stories we're telling, have a plan, and break that stuff up so it can speak natively to the platforms that we want to reach. And the other thing that we have to do that we learned from Marvel is that each one of these pieces has to stand on its own and be part of a larger story. But it has to stand on its own because you don't know when the customer's showing up. And if you don't know when they're showing up, they might be showing up in the middle of the story, and they got to get what's going on. Last year, I was doing a keynote for some realtors, and what I like to do if I can get a list is I go and stalk their social media and see what they're doing. And almost every single one of them had shared this article about Grand Rapids being the 7th best mid-sized city for home buyers. So I stood up and I showed this, and I showed the data and showed some of the posts that people were doing, and I said, here's what I would do that would only take me an extra hour, but would make me so different than everyone else here that I would stand out as the content expert when we're talking about this piece of content. I would share the article, but I would go into Grand Rapids and record a 90-second video about some of what I like in Grand Rapids. And then I would take photos, 5 of them, and do a panoramic of what I'm looking at in Grand Rapids while I'm out shooting the video. I would go on Google Maps and mark off the neighborhoods that I currently have inventory and tell a story about why they are important on my blog. So again, 1 piece of content, 4 other pieces of content that put me at the center of it, and deliver content to my audience where they want it. If they want to just see visuals, cool. They want to hear me talk, awesome. They want to read a blog post, got it. They want the source material, done. And I spent an hour doing it. The last thing that we'll learn from the crew at Marvel is we got to tell stories that the actual customer cares about, not what we care about. And that's the other thing that a lot of brands do, is they go, we got to do this thing because this is the thing that we got to do, and it doesn't connect, and it breaks. You saw that in the social media panel. They were talking about brands that have this great strategy, but the content is for them. It's not for everybody else. And we tend to break this into a theory that we call give versus ask, which looks a little bit like this. So for the customer, we're making lifestyle content, we're doing tips and tricks, and using user-generated content to tell a story around a brand. Then we also have to sell stuff, so we're gonna make ads on the back end that are sales, remessaging, or lead generation. And if we're doing all of this right, the middle shows up, testimonials and product review. And if we can keep this thing going and going and going, now we're creating a community around our brand, around our content, around the messages that we're talking about. But you might be saying at this point, but Eric, I have this Facebook, I have 15,000 people on this Facebook, and they still can't see me, right? There's 2 things. 1, it's a pay-to-play space. So if we're not paying, you're gonna have a struggle on Facebook. 2, I think we're using the wrong metric. So this is a funnel. We've seen a million of them, right? But this funnel dates back to this funnel, the AIDA model. It was invented in 1923 to sell bonds. And we never changed it. This was a time, guys, before television existed. So we didn't even understand mass media. This was a time when newspaper was suing radio stations in what's called the Biltmore Agreement because they thought they were stealing their content. So we had no idea what was going on in mass media. And yet here we are trying to build our campaigns around this linear thinking of where a customer comes in. So this is Nick Bailing. He works for us in various areas. And like I was saying to Myron before we started, if I have a slide like this, it's getting in even if it doesn't make sense. So this is for me. But he and his brothers were at Founders in Grand Rapids. And there was a band on stage. They had showed up late, the place was busy, so they were standing up. But in front of them, there was a guy sitting down, and he had his phone out. I know I hate that guy, right? And he's floating through Instagram, and he comes upon a heated jacket. And he sees it on Instagram, he looks at it for a second, and he puts his phone away. And like 5 minutes later, he takes his phone back out. And he goes and checks out the website, see what's there. Puts his phone away. Drinks a beer, watches another song. And again, phone comes out. This time he's on Amazon, price checking the heated jacket. Goes to Walmart, price checking the heated jacket. Puts his phone away. Orders another beer and hangs out for about a half hour. Takes his phone back out, goes to their Facebook page. Looks around a little bit, puts it away. Orders another beer, watches another song. Takes the phone out one more time, goes to Amazon, and buys the jacket. and puts his phone away. So I ask you, where was he in this funnel? Where? He's not in this funnel. He came right through here, right through purchase. And I know he did that because most people don't have any of these pixels that we've been talking about all day set up correctly. So they have no idea where this guy came from. Comes shooting through the back door and steals a jacket and leaves you nothing. And this is important, guys, because we're thinking that he's going to get in line and go, tell me about your brand. Whew, I'd really like to engage with your brand. Oh, look, I discovered the jacket I found. I should buy it. Then I'm going to tell my friend Scott about it because I just met him and I know he loves heated jackets, right? It's not how it's going to work. Instead, and this one isn't perfect either, instead it might look like this, where these pieces are flowing into one another and at least making more of a watery, hard to grasp sort of thing happening. I see a lot of people taking photos. You are totally more than welcome to do that. I'm not one of those people that protects these decks with fire, so you can have this when this is over. So take your own notes, take as many photos as you want, but if you want this, it's all yours. Okay, so anyway, this isn't perfect, but at least gets us better to understand where these people are coming from. And we'll talk about pixels and tags and all that stuff here in a second. But first we have to understand where they are and what they want to see and where the content shows up when they show up. And let's get back to Nick Bailing, because I have all these gifts and I've got to use them, right? But Nick works for us and he was a designer at first. And then we developed this thing where we send him around the state of Michigan to do travel vlogs, which is what he's doing right now. And I want to get in a little bit deeper on some of the ad stuff you've seen today. And so for some of you this might be review, but for some of this it might be brand new. So I want to walk you through what we would do with a piece of content to go from boost to remessage. Is that okay? Okay. All right, so first thing I might do is I might look at my page insights. And I pulled the last 28 days and I can see total page views, post reach, so how many people I was able to reach. Did we get any recommendations? We don't necessarily care about this, but what we do care is down here, because this is kind of what we're doing with Michigan's Best with food and travel. How many people engaged with the content and how are the video views? Now, in this particular example, we're talking about 3-second video views, which is a free thing you can find on Insights. Pause for a second. A 3-second video view is somebody who just scrolled it through their newsfeed. They don't actually count, okay? So let's not get super excited about the 208,000 video views that are 3 seconds. We need to dig a little bit deeper. Bless you. So what I would do is I would go next to posts. So same page found down here. And I would start to look at this content and go, what is this content telling me? Talk to me, content, right? And I would find that right around down here, we got some stuff happening, right? We've got an article about our most iconic restaurant search that we're doing, and we've got a Michigan Monday from Kalamazoo. And I figured I'm in Kalamazoo, so let's do that one, right? So we're gonna take this piece of content and we're gonna boost it. The piece of content, for context, looks like this, right? So every Monday, we put up a drone flight of a city that Nick has been in to kind of celebrate Michigan on Monday. And in this particular case, we're in Kalamazoo. Now, you've heard this a couple times today, but I want to reiterate this. Google AdWords, Google Analytics, Tag Manager, that sort of thing, and the Facebook pixel, you need this stuff, guys. You've got to have this stuff. And you got to have it for a couple reasons. One, because these guys aren't your friend. And when we're talking about Cambridge Analytica and we're talking about the targeting and the FTC problems that Facebook is having, we're all going to pay for that. And you've seen it if you're in the auto industry or the housing industry or the banking industry, as they're removing your ability to target people and making you rely on other things. If you don't have pixels and you don't have a CRM database, that's going to be a problem for you. So we got to have this stuff. And Facebook tends to call it, this is they like to market things, right? So they call it the power of 5 when we're dealing with the pixel. And making sure that your account is simplified, they're doing that right now. Campaign budget optimization, I'll just hit this stuff real quickly and we can dig in later if you have questions. This simply optimizes the cash that you're spending at the top of the campaign, as opposed to in each individual asset as it used to be. Automatic placements just puts them everywhere that they will work. Dynamic ads show the right product to the person who's already shown interest. So for example, if you went to Target and looked at a green sweater, it doesn't just show you a sweater, it shows you that sweater. And then this one, this auto advanced matching. This, the easiest way to understand this is if you've got the pixel installed, and somebody is using multiple devices, and at one point that pixel breaks, meaning like Jeff was talking about this morning, if you were in here, when his son is playing a game on his tablet that he happens to be a part of, this auto advanced matching will try and figure that stuff out for you and go, well, that game doesn't really fit, so maybe that isn't the right person. Or if I'm searching on a device that I'm not logged in on, it will try and match that stuff so we can increase our audience size even if the pixel doesn't find them. So for ease of understanding, I'm going to break this into 3 audiences. I want, I'd like, I have no idea. So this person's at the bottom of your funnel. They want to buy from you. This person's in the middle. They know about you, they like your stuff, but they're not sure. This guy, maybe he's never heard of you, or he doesn't know why he needs your product. And to put it another way, close me, convince me, and court me. And I might start at the ad library, especially if I'm a realtor. I'm going to type in Redfin. This is another free service that Facebook provides as part of their transparency. And we can type Redfin and we can see their page was created in 2007, and we can see all of the ads that they're running. And if I'm in Seattle and I'm competing against them, I know what they're pushing. I know what's going on in Costa Mesa. I know all of those things. The one thing that I would notice immediately is they're not running any video. We do the same thing with McDonald's. Started in February 2019. They spend about $10,000 a month, and they're super into slushies. But if we know that stuff and we're, I don't know, Burger King, that can change the way that we run our campaigns. So I might start there. And then I'm going to start building out my campaign. And the first thing I said we're going to do is we're going to boost a post. And we're going to boost that exact post that I just showed you. So we're going to go to the Michigan's Best page. We're going to go all the way down. And we're going to boost. So we're going to click on the blue candy-like button and a box will pop up. In this case, I'm going to pick people who like my page and their friends because I'm going to start with a wide audience of humans. And then we're going to scroll down, pick a budget, pick amount of time, and then make sure that the pixel's firing. So there it is. And then we're going to click over here, and this is what it looks like. We're off to the races. So this is now being boosted. And again, we're trying to find these people. People who don't know who we are, people who are in the middle, and people who want a better relationship with us. So now we're going to take that boosted audience that we built, and we're going to build something around them. So we're going to go to the ad manager, and we're going to go up to the hamburger and click on audiences. We're going to create an audience, a custom audience, and we're going to pick video because that's what that piece of content was. Now, I'm going to pick 25% of my video because I know that 3 seconds doesn't matter to me. I want somebody who's engaged. And we'll go down here and pick the video that you guys just watched. We're going to pick 10 days because it's only been up for 10 days, and we're going to give it a name. Michigan Mondays, Kalamazoo, so I know exactly what this audience is. And I'm going to click Create. The next steps, I can either build an ad campaign or I can do a lookalike. In this case, we're building a lookalike. So the source is Kalamazoo, the audience location is the United States, and I'm going to pick 5% of the United States, and we're going to narrow it down with a geography later. So both the audiences show up there, the lookalike and the Kalamazoo Monday. Now, we'll very quickly, in 2 minutes or less, build an ad with all of this stuff. So again, we go to Create, and Facebook ads are broken into 3 parts. The campaign name, so we're going to call this remessaging because that's what we're doing. The ad set, these are the people that we're going to target, so we're going to use those audiences that we just built. And we're going to build for traffic because I want them to go to our website. We're going to spend $10 a day, we're going to call it remessaging travel, and then we're going to build an ad around Nick's content. So we're going to name it after Nick so we know what it is. I believe that's what I name it. No, I named it Michigan's Best Travel 1 because I'm super creative. Okay, now we're going to build the ad. I want to end it at the end of the month, so May 6th to the 31st. Now, here's where we put those custom audiences in. The lookalike and the audience itself. Build the geography around Michigan so I'm not wasting any money targeting people that aren't in Michigan that would fall into that bucket, especially with the lookalike. And then I'll pick a piece of creative. In this case, we've been using a couple, so I'll scroll down and find one of Nick, see it right there, and hit continue. Put some text in to explain what it is, join Nick as he travels around the state of Michigan. Be more creative than that, but This is where you can add some context to the image that they're watching. And then we're going to go down and add a website, right? In this case, it's thisismybest.com. And this is what Ann was talking about earlier this morning. This is the URL parameter they were talking about. So this will tell you where your traffic is coming from. So this box will pop up, and we can put source, where it's going to show up, so campaign medium, in this case the feed, the name, which I called remessaging, and travel, and then the content is Nick 1 image. So I know it's a single image of Nick, so when it shows up in Google Analytics, I can see where this traffic came from. Give it a headline, and I'm going to change learn more to watch more because they watched the video. Okay, and we do all of this stuff because we want to make sure that if they got in our ecosystem and they engage with our content, that we want to continue that relationship with them with something they would find interesting. In this case, we know that you're watching adventure vlogs, so would you like to watch more adventure vlogs? And one of the things that when we're talking about content, you will hear a lot of people ask, how many people watched the video? Did it go viral? Did a lot of people consume it? And I will say that's only part of the story. In fact, a very small part of the story. And the example I will use is Burger King. Because last year in December, they decided to make some noise with something called the Whopper Detour. And what this was, if you don't know it, is you downloaded the Burger King app and you can get a 1-cent Whopper. And how it worked is you would download the app, you would drive to a McDonald's, you would get within 600 feet, you would open the app, it would serve you a coupon, and then you would drive to Burger King and get your 1-cent Whopper. Now, if you have kids, you know that this is a silly idea because you would never get past McDonald's in the first place, right? And the other thing is, when you run stuff like this, it can break. Like this guy was charged $1,100 for his 1-cent Whopper. Here in West Michigan, we don't have a lot of company-owned stores. We have franchise-owned stores. And these guys decided they weren't going to honor it. So these people are downloading the app, taking this extra step, and then it doesn't work. And they haven't had a really good 2018, so they're trying to make some noise. But the thing is, when you're talking about Burger King versus McDonald's, they're not even playing the same game. McDonald's is the largest toy distributor on the planet, one of the largest realtors on the planet, has its own economic index. There is not a Whopper index, there's a Big Mac index that tells you how much your currency is worth based on how many Big Macs you can buy with it. And if we go back to 2008, this battle financially isn't close, but they're 1 and 2. It's 28 million to 8 million. And you're talking in modern vernacular, this is about 14,067 stores and somewhere around 6,000 stores. So we fast forward to 2017, and it's McDonald's number 1 and Burger King number 4. But that's not the actual problem. The actual problem, and one of the reasons I love the internet is because when you type this stuff into a search engine, stuff shows up. The actual problem is there's a chicken shark in the water. And that chicken shark scores an 80 out of 100 in customer service. That chicken shark gets 500,000 earned media on WorldStar. If you haven't visited WorldStar, try and go there and rectify in your head Chick-fil-A and WorldStar. They also score number 1 in social. And most importantly, they took number 5 last year in chain rankings, beating out Burger King. They will take number 3 this year, beating out Subway. So your top 3 will be McDonald's, Starbucks, and Chick-fil-A. Why is this important? Well, this is important, friends, because Chick-fil-A gives them a 24-hour head start every week. They're closed on Sundays. They're closed 1 day a week, and they beat them handily. And how does Burger King respond? Well, they want to make unhappy meals, right? Because let's still go after McDonald's. And they want to do subscription coffee for the smallest coffee that they make so that they can upcharge you with other things in the store. And all of these are tactics, but they're tactics that don't work in this particular case because we're going the wrong direction. They had an okay Q4, and then they started to go the wrong way. And some of that is because I just feel they're not focusing on the customer interaction. They're not focusing on the experience in the store. They're focusing on getting marketers to share stories from Adweek about their unhappy meal. And that's not customer focused. A couple more stories and then we'll take your questions. We just came out of Lent. And for Lent, I decided I was going to give up coffee. I drink coffee every day. So that was a big deal. And about midway through, I got an email from a coffee place that I go to regularly. And the email said, the title was, "We Get the Hint." And it was informing me they were removing me from their customer database because I hadn't gone to the store. In West Michigan, around Easter. Right? And I obviously looked at this email for a while and went, this is for real? You're not going to ask me why? You're going to make an assumptive leap and just kick me out of the, like, see you later, find someplace else. And one of the things that that story teaches me is that a lot of brands feel that they're more important to me than they actually are. Because in this particular case, I can go anywhere to get coffee. I can't go anywhere to get an experience, but I can go anywhere to get coffee. And the difference is marketing at your customers or with your customers. Because in that same time, I've been an ambassador for Maker's Mark since 2007. And what that is, if you don't know, is you sign up and you wait for 7 years. And they send you an email and they say, we got a barrel and it's got your name on it and you can come down here and we'll give you bottles with your name on it from the barrel with your name on it. Isn't that amazing? I'm like, yeah, that's amazing. I can't wait to do that. And we planned this trip. And we saved up money. Couldn't wait to go. And then the state decided it was going to lose power for 5 days. And my basement looked like this. And the problem with that is, and I didn't know this, I didn't know homeowners insurance was just a word. It doesn't actually help you at all. Like, it's just a thing that you pay. So all of my money for Maker's Mark went to my basement. However, my barrel expired, meaning they put it into public consumption on March 31st. On April 1st, I get an email from the CEO. He says, hey, and I know he didn't write it at 6 a.m., but he said, hey, I want to let you know you are an ambassador for life, and while your barrel is in general population, that one's gone, anytime you come down to Loretta, we will put your name on bottles and let you hand dip them and take them home. And then I came home that day, and they sent me a wooden card with my name on it that says Ambassador for Life. Now I'm not saying drink bourbon over coffee, but I might be, right? But what I'm saying is, like, those are two different experiences that two different marketing teams chose to do. And yes, the ambassador program, I'm sure it's a pain in the ass to curate and make sure that all that stuff shows up on time. But then you get up in front of rooms and tell people this story, and that pays dividends. All right, one more story about customer service, and then I want to talk to you about what problems you guys are actually having. So this is Becca Aldrich. She works for a company. She's a senior account manager and used to be the head of our search. And about 9 months ago at this point, she needed a new couch. It's not her couch. She made me put the disclaimer. But she needed a new one. So she did what everyone else does. She goes to Google and she starts searching around the usual suspects, IKEA and Target and Macy's, and can't find anything. And then one day, she's on her couch watching Netflix, and by that I mean she's actually on Instagram while Netflix is on, and she comes across this company called Interior Define and says, that's my couch. So, much like the guy in Founders, she goes to Facebook and starts looking around, seeing what they're about, seeing other products that they have. And she ends up on their website where she orders free swatches. If you don't know what a swatch is, gentlemen, it's a piece of fabric that matches the things in your house so you make sure that the couch goes where it needs to go. She orders some, but what she doesn't know is that they offer complimentary design advice, but she doesn't need to know that because the next day they reach out to her and they say, Becca, you ordered these 5 swatches, I've got 4 more I'd like to send you. How does that sound? That's amazing. That customer service is awesome. Please send it to me. And the woman's like, you think that's awesome? Hold my beer. And sends her back to the website for her to download their app. And what their app does is uses augmented reality to scan her living room, then sends her back to the products catalog so she can pick the thing that she actually wants to buy in the color she wants to buy it in and see how it looks in her living room. So the moral to the story is, of course, she bought the couch, right? But Interior Define didn't start making content an hour before she started searching. They've been doing it the whole time. They developed the app months before she showed up because they don't know when you're going to show up. And as marketers, we have to build content pieces and universes that people are going to jump into, not knowing where they're going to jump into. And then use data to explain what they did when they got there and make more content that replicates that. That is marketing in 2019 and 20 and 21 and 22. The platforms are going to change. We've gone a long time. If you think about, I don't know, there's varying ages in here, but if you think about going from Friendster or GeoCities or whatever to MySpace to Facebook, we've gone a long time with one company. And Lord knows how long that's going to stay true. And so the thing about building your own content and controlling at least part of your own universe is when that thing disappears, you don't disappear. You still exist in other places. So if you're relying on Facebook to do your marketing, you should do your marketing on Facebook. Okay, because at the end of the day, that helps your customer feel like a superhero, which is something to get excited about. I'm going to put up my email.